Hi class, this is your instructor Megan, and in this video I'm going to show you what I would call maybe image production or pre-production. I'm not quite sure what to call it, but when you work in public relations, a lot of times you will be tasked with sending printable items to a printer. So if you're in this class and you're thinking to yourself, I'm probably not going to design anything ever. First of all, I would be surprised if that's the case. I'll bet many of you will be tasked with designing things as part of your public relations careers. But the other thing to keep in mind is that a lot of times as a communications professional, you're going to be tasked with looking at designs that other people have created, copy editing them for messaging, and another thing you're going to have to do is check them all for graphics quality before you send the item to the printer. So what I want to do in this video is show you what that looks like. If you're in charge of a newsletter and someone else designs it and sends it to you and you have to get it to the printer, there's a few things you need to do before you send that newsletter to the printer to make sure that the graphics all meet the technical specifications, which you learned about last week. So I have here a program that was created for the Journalism Workshops office here on campus and needs to go to the printer. So as a PR professional or communications professional in charge of getting this to the printer, here's what I'm going to do. I made a checklist for you guys. I need to open this document and I need to do a couple things. First of all, I need to check for missing links. So you may remember from J103 that when you put a picture in InDesign, when you go to File, Place, and you place a picture, that picture and your InDesign file need to stay together. If you were to, for example, email the InDesign document to somebody else, when they opened it, that picture would be missing. The pictures don't go with. The pictures are what we call linked to the document. So you need to check for any links. You also need to make sure that the color mode is correct. So you need to know the difference between color modes for something that's being printed, CMYK, and color modes for something that is being shown on a screen, RGB. You also need to check the resolution for all of the images. And here's the standard. If your design is going on the web, the resolution of images only needs to be 72 DPI or PPI. If you're designing something that's going to be printed on newspaper, your resolution needs to be 150 to 200. And if you're printing something that's going to be on glossy or magazine style paper or glossy paper, it needs to be at least 300. So we're going to go through all of these as an example. You also need to make sure that none of the images are stretched. I see this a lot. So we're going to go through these one by one. So the first thing we're going to do is I'm going to show you how to check for missing links. So here's our document. Someone else designed it. They sent it to me. I need to send it to the printer. I need to make sure that all the pictures came along with the document and that nothing's missing. So what I'm going to do, actually let me reset my workspace really quickly because I'm in the wrong workspace. I'm going to be in Essentials. There we go. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to come over to my palette over here and I'm going to click on the links button. And this is going to show me a list of all of the graphics used in this design that somebody else made. Now I can change the size of this window by clicking and dragging the bottom. Pretty much anytime you see these little bars, you can click and drag. So I can see now every single image in this program. And what I want to do to make sure that all of the images have been included with the program and not left behind at some point or unlinked is look here in this column. And if you see any warnings, which I see one here, that means the link is missing. So this question mark on a stop sign is telling me that I should not send this to the printer because this picture is missing. What's confusing is the picture will actually appear on the page, but when you get it printed, the printed picture will be a blurry mess because the file is missing. So what I need to do is relink it, and you can see that it's a file called jimstreisel.jpg. So I'm going to double click on this little warning, and I'm going to be taken to a window where I can choose a new file. So I'm looking for that Jim Streisel picture, but I don't see it anywhere here. My computer hasn't found it for me. So I have a couple tricks up my sleeve for finding it. The first thing I'm going to do is try to find a file with a similar name. So I'm going to type in Jim. I'm going to start typing in Streisel. Let's see if it's on my, I can't seem to find it. There we go, I spelled his name incorrectly. So I found some files that look like they might be it. And this one is a PSD, a Photoshop document, and those shouldn't be used in designs. Those should only be used in Photoshop. But I see one here that says Jim Streisa and the L is missing. So it looks to me like the picture exists, but somehow the name has been accidentally changed. There it is, and that's what I'm seeing over here. So let's open it. And that's going to fix the link. So I'm going to look, and you'll see the picture looks exactly the same, except now it's linked. So I've relinked the image. So let's come over to our list of our checklist for preparing graphics, and I've relinked any missing links. Okay, perfect. Now I need to determine the color mode that I need. What color mode do I need for print? Well, I need CMYK, cyan, magenta, yellow, and black. So now I need to click on every graphic in the links panel and make sure it's the correct color mode. And it's exactly what it sounds like. I'm going to click every piece here. This one is a PDF. It doesn't list a color mode. This one is an EPS, which is a vector file. This .ai and .eps are both vector formats. This is a PDF, doesn't list a color mode. This is a photo, and it does list a color mode down here, but it's in RGB. Okay, well that is wrong. I need CMYK. So to fix this, I'm going to right click on the picture that is incorrect. I'm going to click Edit With. I'm going to select Photoshop, and this is going to open the photo in Photoshop. And now I'm going to fix the color. So you can see even up here, Photoshop is telling me this is in RGB. That's not what I want. So I'm going to go to Image, Mode, and I'm going to change it to CMYK. It's going to warn me, are you sure? This is a print color format. Are you sure you want to do that? And I'm going to say yes. And you may have noticed a very slight change in the color. I'm going to save this image. So I can go to File, Save, or I can press Command S. And now I can close it. Now when I come into InDesign, if I click on that same image in the links panel, you'll see that it's now listed as CMYK. Excellent. So I'm just going to do that for every single picture. So now we're on this picture of Colleen Steffen. It's in RGB. That's incorrect. So I'm going to right click, Edit with Photoshop, Image, Mode, CMYK, Save. Come into InDesign, and you'll see the picture is now listed as CMYK. This picture of Tom Gaeta is correct. It's in CMYK. This picture of Liz Granger is incorrect. It's in RGB. So I'm just going to go through and make sure all of these images have been changed to CMYK. So once I change all the images, I might just want to go through one more time and make sure that every single one shows CMYK rather than RGB. Let's go back to the checklist. What's the next thing? I need to determine the resolution needed, and then click on every graphic in the links panel and make sure they're the correct resolution. This program, and the one that you're looking at for homework, is being printed on nice glossy magazine paper. So it requires a resolution of at least 300. Now here's where things get tricky. Let's look at our links panel. I'm clicked on this J-Day picture right here, and you'll see that I have two resolutions. Actually, let me use this one. It's going to be simpler. This has two resolutions. Actual pixels per inch, which is 240, and effective pixels per inch, which is 565. Okay, why do we have two? Well, actual pixels per inch tells us that this picture only has 240 pixels or dots per inch, which is not enough. We need 300. However, if I scroll down, you'll see that the scale of this image is 42.4. I'm going to go to this image so you can see it right here. So this image has been shrunk in InDesign. So what that means is it used to be bigger at 240 pixels per inch, but I shrank it in InDesign and pulled it in and made it smaller to fit on the page. And what that did is it made all the pixels smaller. So now instead of 240 pixels per inch, the effective PPI is 565 pixels per inch. So I actually, by shrinking this down in InDesign, made the pixels smaller, and now it meets the requirement for 300 resolution minimum. So I'm going to click through all of these and explain for each one whether it meets the requirement. So PDFs don't have resolution, so I'm going to skip that. This headshot, unfortunately, the actual resolution is 72, but again, I shrank it, and now the resolution is 1359 pixels per inch. That's way more than 300, so this picture's fine. This picture of Colleen, unfortunately, is not fine. It was originally 200 pixels per inch, and now it's been changed to 245. So we're going to fix that. I'm going to right click. I'm going to go to Edit with Photoshop. I'm going to open this picture of Colleen in Photoshop. Now I'm going to resample the image, which from your Lynda tutorials you'll recognize as a technique for adding pixels to the image. So I'm going to go to Image, Image Size, and here where the resolution is 200, I'm going to have Resample, Constrain Proportions, and Scale Styles all selected, and I'm going to change this to 300. What that's going to do is it's going to add some pixels into the picture so that now we can have 300 pixels per inch instead of just 200. And I'm going to save that by pressing Command S. Now, you'll notice that when I add pixels, the picture quality gets a little worse. So you can add some pixels. You can probably go from 200 to 300 resolution. You can't really go from 72 to 300. The jump is just too much. In fact, if we try to make this image size, let's say 1,000 pixels per inch, look how awful that picture looks. It's grainy, it's blurry, it doesn't look great. So you can increase the size somewhat. You don't want to increase it too much. Now for your assignment, your software test, I haven't created any pictures that you can't resize. I don't have any that are too small to be resized, so you don't need to worry about that. But now if I come into InDesign and I click on Colleen's picture, you'll see that the actual PPI is 300. The effective PPI is 367 by 364, so that's correct. So I'm just going to click through. This picture of Tom Gaeta is fine. Actual is 300, but effective is 566. This one's fine. This one's fine. This one's fine. This one's fine. This one is too small. Effective PPI is only 189. So again, I'm going to right click, Edit with Photoshop, Image, Image Size. I'm going to change the resolution to 300. Okay, it still looks okay. So I'll save that, give it a high quality. Close my file, come back into InDesign, and now if I click on that add, it's now 314 effective PPI. So that is correct and can be printed. This one is too small. This one is fine. This one is fine. This one is fine. And the rest are PDFs and vector.ai files, so I don't need to worry about those. Excellent. So now I need to click on every graphic in the links panel and make sure they are not stretched. Okay, so let's go back to that picture of Colleen because it had two effective PPIs. It has two effective PPIs because the image is stretched. If I scroll down in my link info panel, you'll see that the scale is 81.6 by 82.3. So that means it's been shrunk down to 81.6% of its actual size in its width, but it's been shrunk down to only 82.3% of its actual size in its height. These scale sections should have one percentage. There should never be two different percentages here when you're working with graphics. So let's go to that Colleen image. I'm going to click on her image in the links panel, and then I'm going to go to the link. It's going to take me to that image of her. I'm going to click on it so that it's selected with the brown outline. And then up here where we have the amount of stretch, I'm going to uncheck the chain so that I can edit them separately. And I'm going to make this one 81.6, and I'm going to make this one 81.6. And what that's going to do is unstretch this picture so that now the effective PPI just has one number and the scale is just 81.6. And I chose 81.6 because it was already pretty close to that. I didn't want to deal, it was 81.6333. I didn't want to deal with all the decimals. So now that's correct. There's a few more here that are stretched. Let me see if I can find one. You'll know it's stretched because the effective PPI will have two numbers. There we go. This picture of Sarah Quinn is stretched. It's 16.7% shrunk down width, but only 16.4% shrunk down in height. So again, I'm going to click Go to Link, and then make sure her picture is selected with the brown outline. Make sure my chain is unchecked up here, and let's make this, again, I don't want to deal with decimals, so let's make it 16.7 and 16.7. And you'll see that unstretches the picture, so now there's only one percentage for scale and only one effective PPI. So that's everything that I need to do to get this document ready for print. There are a couple other techniques that I could use to make sure this prints exactly how I want, but at this time, these are the big things that we're going to look for, is working with graphics. So we'll talk about some other techniques later in the class. But as far as your software test and being prepared to create a logo and a newsletter, these are the things you need to look for. Open the links panel, make sure none of the links are missing, check all the links for color to make sure they're CMYK and not RGB, check all the links for resolution to make sure that they're at least 300 for magazine, at least 150 for newspaper, and then click on all the links and make sure none of them are stretched. So for your homework, that's what you're going to be doing.